All right, let's get back to it. Hopefully that works out sound-wise. A lot to do. We're gonna get this. So we're using a separate box to do the BIOS mod, and we're just BIOS modding these, and then this is going to be ran actually from a gray matter case using a Linux build OS that we use through simplemining.net. It's a custom Ubuntu image, and we'll do some zooming in on what we're doing here. Check and make sure you guys can hear me. Everybody, is that a lot better? All right, I'm getting good feedback. That's good. All right, so go ahead and turn this guy over here, and we'll do a zoom in of what we're doing here. So I'll take you cradle to grave on the BIOS mod, at least for the RX 580. And once we get the other box built, we're gonna build another one of these for you guys tonight. We're gonna get this one turned on here in a minute and get it mining. We have a brand new another version of this that's we're gonna set here, and we're gonna put these cards in, so you're gonna see that whole build in this live stream. And first things first is I want to make sure that these are BIOS modded. So when we go and we look, one of the very first things we do is go into GPU Z, and we just check to see what kind of memory type it is. These ones are Samsung. We'll see if we can get a zoom in on this to kind of show you what we're looking at. So here, let me open here. This zooms right there. Yep. So we check to make sure that they're all the same, because once we mod one and we get it working good, since we're using all the same cards, we're going to put the same BIOS across all of them. And we just do a quick initial test with the PC build. So we check the memory here, and then we come in and we just run Claymore. This is 9.2 version. I don't do the dual mining for the first test. I just do a quick check to see what the card's outputting, just to get a baseline test. Just make sure that we had an increase of some sort. So this fresh out of the box in the machine. And we're going to check and see what this thing's going to do. It's probably around 24. A lot of these RX 580s come out of the box. They're about 24.7, 24.6. If you're getting that when you buy one of these, that's perfectly normal. That's effectively what they're out of the box doing. We're seeing what this one's going to do real quick. And it should be right around that 24. And if you bring up the memory on them, you can get them to about 27 without messing with any of the timings, but then you're blazing a little more power. Yep, right there, 24.585. So it'll be about 24.5 on this card. So we can see right now that that's what that is. So I just make sure that that's what I'm getting, and then what we're gonna do is there's really a couple pieces of software that you download. We'll put that in the description. There's several people out on YouTube right now that have done it the same way. They have very good videos. We're not really reinventing too much of the wheel here, but it's the PolarisBiosEditor and the AtiFlash, which will provide the links at the description below on this. But essentially, the very first step that you end up doing is you come in here, the AtiFlash, open that up as administrator. Once you download that, and the very first thing that you want to do is you want to save that the current BIOS that's on this card. You want to save that off. Now, again, we've already done that with these, but I'm going to go ahead and go through this first one as the first step. So we're going to hit save on that. I create a separate folder just to name the different cards, since we do a lot of different cards here. We'll just save it at the root of this, since I've already done it here. And under this, it's going to give you just a basic file name of BIOS. You can just name it the card type or whatever. That way, if you're doing multiple, you can figure it out. MSI original RX 580.ROM. Save that there in the root of the folder. And then you're done with this for the time being. Once this thing comes up and says the ROM has been saved, you can kind of push that over to the side, and then you're going to want to go into the next folder that we had here, which we had the PolarisBiosEditor, and then you're going to want to go to the PolarisBiosEditor.exe, and you want to run that administrator. Now this is an interface that allows you to edit, so you want to come in there where you had the original BIOS. I'm going to open that, and it's going to bring up all the different power settings, VRAM settings, memory, and all that. All we're going to be messing with on this is the timing. Now there are very specific things that you can do with this if you want to go through a lot of trial and error with modifying the memory settings, the voltages. If you want to hard code those into the BIOS where you're not having to modify and do those. What I'd recommend with that, if you're going to do that, what you can do is just do the timing piece first. Validate that you have an increase in your hash. Then go in and use tricks if you're using Windows, or if you're using any of the other mining tools. You can go in there and just do the software updates like you normally do, where you just increase the memory speed and you're going to decrease the voltage being used. And once you find a stable setting for your particular cards, because this is very predicated on the cards that you have, once you find that, if you wanted to kind of lock that in to where you didn't have to mess with it, then you could technically come back in here and modify some of those settings because you know it's stable. Going in there and always updating and changing the BIOS all the time, I would not recommend that. Just because every time you're doing this, if anything changes on it, you may impact, you have just a chance of bricking the card. So I would not go into this as often as you'd want. So going back to what we're doing here, under the timing area, under 2:1750, you're taking that whole entire string there, you just double click it, Control C to copy it, and you want to paste it on the 2000 block, and then Control V, and just make sure those last few are the same. This particular one, it's 3D17, you're good to go. Save that. Now it's going to come up and ask you for a name. I click on the original, and then I just change this to mod, and that's what a lot of other folks on YouTube are doing too, that have shown this particular thing. You can call this modded, and you save that. So just made a duplication of the current ROM, but it had the right correct timings on that. So once that's done, you come back into your WinFlash piece that you had here, and you want to load that image. So you go to the BIOS, and this is the one that we just modded. So we're going to take that one, and we're going to hit open on that. And it's going to put the file name down here, and then you're going to program it. Now this is going to run for a second, and don't freak out. It may come up and say not responding. That's perfectly normal. Don't hit the X. Don't try to stop this process. Let that run. It'll take it about a minute. Just let it complete. And once it's done, it'll prompt you with a box saying that it's done. But don't shut it down. Don't turn it off. Just let it run. So we're going to let that piece cook. We're going to finish this card, and then what we're going to do is we're going to switch over to this and get this thing back up and running, make sure that it's validated. When we started this entire rig, before it was all 24 a card. We just made sure that the build was good. So now we're going to test this back on, make sure it's close to 30 each card. And then here, the BIOS on this programmer was done. It's going to ask for a restart. Go ahead and let that restart. The reason why we're doing that is because we're going to boot this up real quick, and we're going to validate on the Claymore that it actually did. It took the timing, it's stable, and it increased. And what we're looking for is a target of around 27 to 28 mega hash, because that's what you're going to get on the BIOS mod. And then you do some final tweaking where you can bring down the core clock and you can bring up the memory, and you'll get it up close to 30 mega hash a second. So we're going to go into Claymore very first. We're going to validate that the timing took. And the way we did that is just as you saw before. We started this with going through and testing, and it was 24. So this is the same card. You've seen this live. As it's going through, and the magic number here is about mid 27s to close to 28. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to shut down Claymore after this. I'm going to bump up the memory speed just a little bit. I'm going to bring down the core clock because that reduces some of the voltage use to make it more efficient. And then we're going to make sure that it's clicking in around 30. So this one's holding 24, so it did not handle the memory settings. I did not program that right memory setting. So we're going to go back in there and validate real quick that this actually handled that. Now I've had this with a few cards where we've changed the memory setting on that and it does not work like some of the other ones did where it was coming in at 27, 28. So we're just going to open this back up. And what we're going to do I'm going to reprogram the timing on the first card that we did because I know that locked it in. And once we find a good stable setting on this, we'll post this BIOS out there for everybody. That way, if you end up getting one of these RX, MSI, Twin FROZR cards, we'll go ahead and post that out there. And we have several more out here too that we're going to be going through. That was updated and programmed. We're going to let that reboot real quick. I picked up some of these Red Devils. These are the Power Color versions. Now this is the RX 480 Power Color card. I'll be doing those. I got some of the Strix that you saw in the previous videos. We're gonna let this get up. Now
modded a 4.8 or 470. And after he modded it, he wasn't able to get it to turn back on, so we had to send it back to Amazon.
Yeah, I haven't had any bricks. Well, I've had only one brick when I was trying to do a 370. Let's see here. All right, Claymore, post that new BIOS. I do like how 9.2 is still picking up these as 480s.
Yeah.
And there that is. So you can see from the BIOS that I saved off of here with the timing that I saved, we did it in the exact same way as the first card, but you can see right there at 28, and all I did is load that original BIOS that came off that first card. That's why sometimes they're, I don't want to call it a pseudoscience, but sometimes the BIOS settings are very predicated to certain cards sometimes for whatever reason. But we know that this is a good BIOS setting, so this is definitely going to be the one that we're going to be posting out for you guys. So it's right there holding at about 28. So what we're going to do is we're going to bump some settings up and show you gaming, global settings, Wattman. We're going to bring down the core by 10%. Now this card is at 1338, somewhere around there, so it's about 138 megahertz down. Dropping a lot of the power usage of the card, and we're going to bring up the frequency up to 2150 on this card, and we're going to apply this. Now this is just an initial WAG test, or swag I would say, because we're going to do a lot more of the modding on the actual final destination of these cards, which are going to be in these gray matter boxes, which are going to actually be using a Linux OS. So now we're going to restart Claymore here, and you'll see it comes up here what. Now I'm not showing power usage right now. We will show the power on this. And before, I guess we could have done a power. We did do a power on this before, so you'll see. We can tell you what it was before we did all the mods. It was about 1,250 watts of power was being used by this. And there you see it, 30.1, 30.2. And with about a 10% drop in that core, the actual core speed, holding right there at 30. That's a solid build for the RX 580.
What driver are you using?
Oh, the current driver, it's a good question. Right now is, I think it's the latest, but I want to make sure I give it the right one to you guys. So update, we are using 17.4.3, and we did the full driver. We did the relive driver, not just the core setup. So this is if you're just using Windows right now. We'll be using a different setup with the Linux build. I gotta look and see what drivers on the Linux side, but yeah, it looks like this card's holding about 30.2, which is a pretty solid thing for the RX 580. So we're going to close that down, we're going to shut this down, and I'm going to rinse and repeat one more time quickly for everybody, just to show you that it is a repeatable process. And it's not, you know, too scary or anything like that, and hopefully it'll, as we start to get more people joining the stream, and I encourage, if you guys can, because I mean we're trying to keep this rolling, if you guys can drop a note out on one of the forums or on Reddit or something, and just let folks know that we're having this stream, that'd be great. That way I can keep it going. I'm gonna pull this, pull this card off here. Now this one's good. Is this one good? You haven't done this one?
You can.
This one has not been done yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So we're gonna set this one over. This is a fresh one. Obviously, this has not been turned on or played with. It has the original. I mean, we literally just took these out of the boxes and tried to get to them. And I haven't had a video in a few days for you guys. We've been really busy trying to get a lot of this stuff done, and we thought, why not have a live stream? We can let you guys see and build confidence that this process is not that complicated. And it's actually pretty easy. And the same kind of action is done with all the different cards. The scary part is sometimes is when you're downloading BIOSes and you're just kind of praying that it works, that you downloaded the right one. I like kind of doing our own just because I knew it came from the card. But what we're going to try to do is, if we find good successful builds on these cards, I'm going to try to start posting them under our channel. That way you guys have at least, I mean, not saying that, you know, from a credible source side, you guys have, I mean, we've been doing this since forever, 2012, 2013, but we've failed a lot and learned a lot, and that's what this channel's for, is to help you guys not have to go through some of the pains that we went through. So, new card. So right out of the gate, the very first thing we check, GPU Z, and just validate the memory is the same. This is also Samsung. So So we're gonna go right into, now we're going straight to programming on this one. So we're gonna, oops, sorry, hold on. Hold please. We're gonna go ahead and run Claymore real quick, just to show and validate that this card hasn't been touched. And just to see what the base, I like doing it anyways, just from a baseline standpoint. I want to validate the card is only running at base stock, everything. Even though we buy these new, you know, who knows if Amazon repackaged them or somebody messed with it. So this one's already at 30. So this one was already done.
I'm surprised you pulled the cellophane off.
Hmm?
I'm surprised you pulled the cellophane off.
Mm-hmm.
That one wasn't touched. Huh.
So I'm gonna look at the BIOS on it just to make sure. Or we got a Frankenstein, which would be interesting. Frankensteins do occur. It does occur. The R9-280X Toxics or Frankensteins. Those cards were sick. Let's see here. So we're going to close that. We're going to open this. Oops, not that one. I keep going to that one. We're going to actually open the oh yeah, I do need to open this one first. We need to save this BIOS off because I want to see this. So we're going to save. We're going to name this one. I'm just going to call it Freak. And what I'm looking for is to see if the timings between those two pieces are actually the same. If they are, then that means that we touched it and for some reason put the cellophane back on the card. So we're going to then now go in and open under the Polaris editor. That ROM, and we're gonna look. $19.17. We did not touch that, and that card is running at 30. So these timings are interesting. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna see if we have a freak here, and we're gonna copy this timing down since we have the original BIOS, and if it goes down, then we'll put it back. We're gonna save that. We're going to call this Freak 2. Modded. To see if we got what I would call like a modified nano card that's running at 33 point something. And this could have been a bin, like a bin chip, you know, the top tier, high ASIC quality. We'll see. Now we're going to load that saved mod, and we're going to program it. Because remember, all we did is we took a copy, we changed that copy, and now we're loading that copy back on the card. I'm going to let that run. I'm going to test it first without messing with any of this, the actual settings. And then we're going to go in and we're going to bump it up and we're going to see what this thing can actually do. This could be a freak of nature card. If this thing starts popping to 36, you guys seen it here first. I'm thinking that it's going to go down. And I'm thinking that the timings that are on there are just like perfect. And if they are, we'll test it. We'll take that base timing and put it onto this card and see if that goes straight out of the gate at 30. Because then you actually could just go work the core down and not even bump the memory, and now you're using even less energy. That's a great BIOS then. We'll see if it can handle it. But it also is super predicated on the ASIC quality too. Like that could be just everything running great. And the memory speeds, and we'll see. I like to see if I can replicate it across cards. I'm interested to see what we can get out of these doubles. We haven't modded these yet. All right, Now obviously the machine that I'm using is like a freak of nature. I like to do things fast, so it's got a very fast 960 solid state in it. So it's hyper fast. That's why it keeps rebooting really quick. I don't like to wait around for this stuff. So let's go in. This BIOS is fresh. So we're just gonna start the miner real quick and just see what it does with the timings copied. See if it actually goes down. I wonder what the survey is on that. $30.1, 30.2. It's up a little bit because it was right at 30 and 29 out of the box, so it went up a little bit. So what we're gonna do now is go in and look at gaming, global, want man. Maybe it held the memory settings. It did. So it was holding 30 because out of the gate. It held the memory settings from the previous. I'm just for shits and giggles gonna do 22 just to see if it holds. And we'll see what that does. So we'll do 30.7, 30.8. Can we get to 31? No, it looks like about 30.7. All right, so let's shut that down. We'll take this out. We'll put these cards off to the side. Let's try to go ahead and get this going, and then we'll come back to the other build of this card. So what we're gonna do now is, this one's been built, so we can pull it.
I'll pull this over here.
We're going to take this one out. It's nice and warm. What we'll do is we'll bring the camera over, get a better, closer look at this build before we turn it on. And let you guys take a look at it. See here. So this is the gray matter GPU mining case. We'll shoot a link to it. It's got a power button here, reset, some light indicators, triple fan front here, and try to make sure it's nice and you can see everything. So the first probably question you're going to have is that these GPUs are very close, but we will show you the temps on them, and it's actually really good. They stay about 62 Celsius with the tops on. There's really good airflow through the case. And now we got a P2 1000 watt in here for a full set of 580s. So we're going to be definitely needing to modify some of the voltage settings to make sure that we stay right underneath that. Our target is about 980 watts, so it's It's going to be pushing that P2 a little bit. We do have on the other build a AX 1200 Corsair that we're going to put in it. As you can see, BTC board, and it's set up in here.
These fans, they also plug into the motherboard, so the motherboard can control the speed of the fan. So if it heats up, it can speed them up and cool it down even more.
Yeah, so it does have temperature control in it. You can see the back here. There's some pretty good ventilation coming through it. And just real quick, these fans are pulling or pushing?
Pulling.
So they're pulling the air through the case. So the intake is here.
Nope.
Or the
intake is over here.
Is the intake coming this way?
Yeah.
And it's blowing across.
It's blowing across and out the back.
Yeah. So it's a good clarification. I wanted to make sure. So pulling in here, blowing across the cards, across the board, and then out the vent, out the back. So there are no rails with this. There's brackets here. So this is kind of like where if you were to actually set up a server rack kind of setup, you would just do with shelves, or you just set it on some shelves, and then you could bracket it from the front. I'm going to put this back in order here, and we're going to get this set up to where we can show you guys this setup. I'll let folks get this thing going.
There would be the brackets.
Yeah, there's the
go on. Go this way. So.
Yep, so you could set that actually on the shelf and then mount it to the front of the server rack.
Yeah.
Or if you wanted to fashion your own rack together and then snap it down, if you want several of them, you could do it that way. You want to go ahead and get that plugged in and set up, and then I'll answer some questions while we get this thing set up now. I'll go ahead and come over by the keyboard, and you guys can ask some questions while we're getting it set up, and I'll see if I can get them answered for you.
So a couple other things is that when we first set these up, the motherboard has the video coming off of the PCIe slot, so it'd be one of the video cards. I go and I change the motherboard settings so that the video comes off of the motherboard instead. That way you're not trying to plug an HDMI cable through the server rack.
So you guys have any questions while we're setting this up?
So this miner is actually from simplemining.net. That's why it looks a little bit different. It's running off of a 16 gig, well actually this one's a 74 gig USB stick, but it can be as small as a 16 gig. Finding all 6 video cards.
We're going to see how that BIOS setting looks with that setup. We'll zoom in here, get you guys a better look. We plug the kilowatt into it? Kilowatt
Yeah.
plugged in, right?
Yep.
Okay. So we're going to take some voltage or some wattage settings too from it. You get your network plugged into it.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's on, I can see it here.
Okay. It's starting now. Took a second to process the tag. So this is non-modified, just the BIOS update. So we have not played with any of the settings yet. So post the BIOS update, the cards are all at 27 a pop. So we can go in and modify the memory timings to bring the memory settings to take it to 2150, and then they'll all be at 30.
All right, so I don't know how well this is going to come across.
Zoom out. There we go.
Yeah.
He's doing it from his phone control.
So I'm controlling it from the phone. This is their UI that they have that you can modify your BIOS. I'm going to zoom in here. I'm going to click on configure. Zoom out here because I think go back in. I may have to do this from a PC and not be able to show you. Oh, there we go. So this allows me to modify my core memory, which, Mike, you want that set to 1150, is that what you said?
Yep. 1150. 2150.
The core memory?
The core, set the core to 1135.
1135. The memory, we're going to set to
2150.
2150. And the power stage,
Just leave it at its state right now, and then we'll step it down as it gets stable.
okay.
I always mess with power separately.
Press that. It's saving it.
And what this is doing is this will push this to the rig right now live. So we should see a change. As it just changed it. It made the changes here, as you can see. It's pushing it to each card. It just committed it to every card, and now they're starting with the new settings. Again, this is from simplemining.net. They have everything cradle to grave on how to set this up on there. We'll do a separate video. I'll do a proper video on that, but if you wanted to get an early start, you could head there and follow their setup. But everything we're doing here, you could technically do in Windows. You could technically do on ETH OS, where you're setting those settings up, post the BIOS update, and still get kind of the same results. A lot of these things haven't been updated to recognize these as 580s, but these are actually 580s, not the 480s. So now it should start up here, and we should see the change in hash. And we'll take some power settings here in a second too. Let me zoom out a little bit. There we go. Got to get a few cycles, make sure it's committed those 27. And what you could do is make sure, set the core to 1250 versus 1133. Because these cores bases were 1338, I think.
Yeah.
Is what they are. So we're using a little less power than we were using before, but I think it's taking a small hit on that committing. You push the...
Oh, that's right for a little bit more. So you want the core at what?
Set the core to 1250.
And the memory at 2150.
Yeah. I still think from us, for at least the 580s, maybe the 480s, we can bring down to the 900. I mean, because we can bring those down 900 watts, 950, somewhere around there. But these 580s are still drawing more power. So the 1000 may need to get bumped up.
Yeah.
And what we can do is we'll swap out, if we want to. I have several 1200s
Yeah.
in those other boxes that are only using 2 GPUs for like gaming.
Right.
I'll even swap you. It doesn't matter.
I still got a bunch of 480 rigs.
Yeah, we'll swap them out to make sure. So we just repushed. So the clock into there. 1250. So yeah, see the core was set to 1380. And the memory state was said 1000. I don't know what. We know it definitely wasn't running at 1000. I think it's having it may be having an issue reading that as being a 580.
Yeah.
In this OS shit. Because in Windows right now, these are definitely popping 30. But we'll see. This may be a limitation on the OS that's on this right now, to where it's not pressing the right memory settings to these cards. We'll see on this. We just repushed again just to make sure. That's the one thing in mining, if you're watching, is that if it doesn't work the first time, you may have to try again until it takes. I mean, it's very finicky sometimes, and you have to go through it a few. That's why I like kind of doing the live stream, because you kind of see it as it goes. You can see what we struggle through and how we get through it, and then you can pause, rewind, go back, and see, how we tackle it. We'll try to do more of these if they're helpful, if you guys would like these, or if you want more of the refined videos.
Yeah, it's still showing 27.
Yeah, I think it's the OS.
Could be the OS, or it could be the driver.
Yeah, because which driver is it using?
I'm not sure at the moment.
So the driver on this, I think, is actually 16.5, which 17.4 plus is for the 580s. So this is using an inferior driver right now in the Linux build.
Yeah.
and I think it's hard stopping there. If this was running the 17.4.3 equivalent.
ETH up to it?
I think ETH is.
We could take that hard drive and put it in there.
We can try it real quick. So we're going to power this down. We're going to test this with the ETH real quick. Here, just pull this one. It's one of the advantages of having a lot of different rigs laying around is we can rob Peter to pay Paul to find out the better solution here.
See a SATA cable?
Should be several over here. Zoom out here. Give you you can pull the one that's off that. Oh, you're talking for
I need a SATA cable too, though.
for the
For the
Corsair.
SATA course.
That's a thermal tank. Here, try this one. This bag right here. TBJ. SATA. SATA. I'm gonna power it down all the way. I'm just gonna put the power.
Yeah, what's the screen say?
Powered down. Yeah, the version that's packaged with that simple mining is an older version of Claymore. They do have a 9.2 out there. We'd have to go in there and modify that, but I do want to check ETH on it just to see. That way you can have more of a comprehensive test. We know in Windows, just based on the mods that we were doing, that we were getting 30 out of these cards. So we know with 17.4.3 with Claymore 9.2 that 30.4-ish is out of these cards right now. With simple mining, with the 8.0 Claymore with an older driver, I think it was like 16.5, we're only getting 27. So now we're going to try ETH is the latest build of that, the 1.2. So we'll let this boot up. Seeing all 6 GPUs. Yeah, Manuel, I hear you on the 290s. They're great cards, but they use a lot of power. You're talking 1600 watts for 6 of them. Plus, even with voltage mods, you're maybe at 1550 on 290Xs. I think that's actually the best voltage mods I've ever seen is 1550 for 6 of them. Most of the time you're usually doing 2 power supplies because you're close to 2000 watts. So you're about 800 or less watts with these. Usually almost 1000 watts less with RX 480s or 580s. So the 290s are all good hashers, but we're going to see what this does with ETH. Again, for folks just joining, these are RX 580s. What are the boxes? Let's get a keyboard on this too. You get a keyboard on this? You can show miner and see what the hashes are. Bump the camera. So this is the cards that we're using. So MSI 580s. What's it getting? 27. Same thing. So Windows is where it's at. Or ETHOS is still running an older version of the driver and the Claymore. So I don't think it's going to be any faster for right now. Until they update the drivers and stuff, I think you're going to be at that. The only thing we can do is play around. We'll do that for a different video. Play around and drop the voltages to drop the power. What we'll do is I'll show you guys kind of what we're pulling right now. I don't know if you can get that. Might have to.
There we go.
So right now that's the power that we're pulling, which isn't all that bad for the 580s. So that's 6 of them. We're running just over 1,000 watts, and that's before we even dropped any of the power settings at all. And running 27. So in ETHOS we can actually do a VI on local and mod the memory settings, because I think the memory settings right now are stock, and maybe that's part of the thing too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You can do the VI local, and then you're gonna have to go into the Control C it. So what we're gonna do real quick before we shut this down in
VI what?
local.config, CONF. Local. Yep. And then that's commented out because this is for the old R9s. Those are fine. Go down. You need to keep going down. There's one that we're going to uncomment. Keep going. It's like almost at the bottom. It's like... no, that's for... not RX. Go down. You'll see it. It'll say for RX builds. RX series. Here we go. Well, power tune. So right here. Power is table for this. So what we want to do is, get those and then just change that to.
What do you want those set to?
Do that at 4.
Spaces in between.
Yeah. And instead all those are 21.
1, 2, 3,
5, 6. You guys.
1125? Or
No, 1150. 2150 on that. On each of them. Oh, you gotta hit insert. Back. Delete both of those. Back.
One.
Okay. Back up here.
These were going to be 4.
Yeah, I'd do them all at 4. The power supply that we're using is a EVGA 1000 watt P2. It's the Platinum series. Yes, we are exceeding its design capabilities a bit, but for at least the testing purposes right now, this rig, if we modify some of these settings and drop some of the voltages, it'll be under that 1000 watts. The P2s, as long as it's the platinum and the T2s, the titaniums, I've personally ran those well over 1,000 watts to 1,100 watts, 1,200 watts at max. Not for long periods of time, as we're doing some testing. Obviously, it's probably not recommended, but yeah, I'd leave those 1180 or fine. Just leave them there. But the G2s and the G1s, like I've done an 1150 G1 and blew it up when it hit just over 1,000 watts. So I don't usually try to mess around with the gold too much or lower silvers. I only usually stick with platinums and titaniums. Just R. Yeah. We'll reboot this. Oh, there's camera was. Might zoom out.
There you go.
Sorry, we were modifying the settings for the in ETH the memory and timing. We'll show you guys where that's at. So we're only going to mess with this for a few more minutes, and then we're going to try to do a quick build of another one of these real quick. Just slapping it together. You'll get to see that build. The whole thing will probably take 20 minutes just to put together. While he's building it, I'm going to be finishing the rest of the flash on the cards. I think you can hit stats S for which version that piece is using. Maybe not. I might be thinking of a different one. Yeah, they're still 12 and 27. So I think until the drivers are updated on the Linux builds,
Yeah.
you're going to be at 27. And if you were running full Windows on these,
What version of Claymore were you running on the Windows?
9.2.
And this is,
I think 8.
that could be a thing too.
Yeah, it more than likely is. All right, let's go ahead and shut this down. We'll go ahead and build. We'll build the other rig for them. I'll go ahead and we'll get this set up to where I can start.
What's the command for shutdown?
You can just Control C it and then just. Yeah, that'll do it. All right, let's do this quick. So what we're gonna do is restage the camera before we can get the process of fresh build. We're gonna move this box over, take the other one out. Let's get this set up like this. I'm gonna finish the other cards. See those that way. We'll leave this like this. We'll zoom in so you guys can see that. You can bolt it down.
Yeah.
You want the screwdriver? The
Got it.
this? Here?
No, these are the.
Oh, you don't want to strip them?
Yeah.
That's fair. And then still these. Here. Where's those other? There they are. Never mind. Answer my own question. So for those just joining, we are going to finish BIOS modding these 4 cards to do a whole other one of these builds real quick, and we'll do that build in front of you. So we are just using one of the gaming PCs I have here to do the configuration, the mod for the BIOS. Those are all there. That's good. Make sure you guys can see that. Put the camera on. We'll zoom in on the stuff you care about, which is going to be the process there. Usually I use a bigger monitor for this stuff. Hopefully you guys can see that. I'll try to move it down. So, first things first, make sure that this card is performing at a fresh, brand new, crappy stock speed. You move in. Now I know there's some folks out there that do the whole 6 cards at the same time. I kind of choose to kind of do these manually because I like to find diamonds in the rough here. And I'm not overriding a card with a better timing or a better setup. This one's already at 30.8. Sure we didn't mod these ones?
No, they're not mod. The self-install still on them, and they're not done. We modded those.
Well, we got another freaking nature. Haven't touched any of the settings and it's running at 30.7. Man, that was a brand new card.
Same batch.
We got a good batch is what we got. I don't want to mess with it for that one. If it's out of the box, it's 30. I'm not touching the timing on it.
Alright. Leave it.
Well, I mean, what we can do is we can put a... I wonder if I have my green stickers. I have these little stickers. We can sticker it. And if we put it in there and it runs on Linux and it runs at 24, then we can do timing on it.
Alright.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's holding 30.8 and I haven't touched it. Took it out of the box. Another freak of nature. So I'm going to shut this one down. I'm going to put this one to the side. This one did not require a BIOS mod. It is running like a champ. Shut down. I'm gonna put these over here. Put this in here. Yeah, spin that off, spin that, and just pull it off. You're gonna show them the.
Yeah. Alright, so here's what the new case looks like
When you unbox it.
when you unbox it. So the best thing to do, try not to pull this box out here, undo this guy and this guy. I let it drop just because it's holding the camera, and then you can pull the box out and it frees up. But it comes with the powered risers already, which is a plus. And then it's got all the connections for your fans. The other thing that's nice is, not a lot of people care about packaging, but it's got a nice styrofoam, so it's well protected when shipping. Alright.
Do you turn?
No, it's not. There you go. You got it.
Set back up. Set this for the next card. I got 2 more cards to do after this. Test this one out of the box. Let's see if we got another freak that's over 30 mega hash at the start. We got a great batch.
Another one, huh?
Another one that's at 30. 30.7.
All these came from Micro Center.
Micro Center? Yeah. Kind of makes me wish that we recorded taking them out of the box, so we could show them that we just took them out of the box. We didn't do the BIOS mod on these. Well, we showed the first view were 24.
Yeah.
You know, for just giggles here, I'm going to show that the timings have not been modified on these. What we're going to do, oops, I need to go in as administrator on that. We're in as administrator. We're going to save this. I'm going to just put this under here and just say, call this fresh. The other one was a freak. I'm going to call this fresh. new RX 580. Save. Make sure that's zoomed to where you guys can see it. I'll bring the timings window over there so you can see it. Open. We'll go to the fresh new 580. We're gonna scroll down to 1750. There they are. A17 and 019. Can you see that? No, you can't. Let me. Here, I'm just gonna bring this over. Next time I'm gonna have the screen capture. I'm gonna do this on the screen capture card machine. That way you guys can see it officially. Well, you can see the timings have not been copied. So those are different timings. But we're getting 30 out of that. It's a good BIOS. Since I'm down to another card. Do another look at what you're doing here.
Yeah, so the first thing that you do is pull your power supply out of the box and figure out the cables that you're going to need. Put them on the power supply and then put the whole thing inside. And then once you get the back screws mounted to the power supply back here, then start routing your PCIe cables through the frame here, through these couple holes here. And then your powered risers, these guys here, you just want to run underneath the frame and then down the side here. So, and now I'm just going to unpack a few of these USB cables and get those all straightened out and ready to put in.
And that's for the powered risers. And they're pretty typical powered risers, nothing too fancy. You can see the versions and the model numbers of what they are. All the same.
There's two different versions of powered risers. One has the Molex connection here, which I recommend this because of the amount of power. The other powered riser has basically a fan connection here that would plug in here. And basically on some other units when I first started doing this, I was drawing so much power that I was actually melting the connection. I'm surprised I didn't have a small little fire, to be honest.
Stick with the Molex. Actually, the Molex are annoying me. Just because they're... Every once in a while, if you push a pin in wrong, you'll push it. You push the pin or the actual cable out. It's still kind of annoying. It happens. I'm gonna zoom back out. So we have another Freaky Nature card that's at 30. We'll leave this as it is. Shut it down. See if we can find a card that's actually 24. Yeah, because if the ones with bad BIOS is, you know, that have like the 24 BIOS.
Yeah.
Because right now the Wattman is set on these cards to the 2150. So I should be at 27 with the BIOS mod. So we're gonna get 2 more here, and then this rig will be ready to be set up with these 580s. So we're building 2 of these tonight to get them ready to go. And why don't you guys drop us a comment? Would you like to see a NVIDIA build for ZCASH? I got some inquiring minds that want to know if you'd like to see have an opportunity to pick up some old 980 Ti's at a pretty reasonable price. And if I get 6 of those and put those in a rig for a ZCASH build, if you guys would want to see that, just comment on there and let me know. See if we can put that together. Yeah, for the folks that were asking the question, yes, you can put 2 power supplies in this case. This setup here, let me just take the whole tripod here.
There's a second one that can go right here. It would have to be a smaller, you know, like 860 or an 850, but you can definitely put it there. This part of the frame does snap out, and there are mounting screws there for it.
You know, those are the kind of maybe the Vegas will require that if and when AMD decides to ship some. Yes, the power supply that's in there right now for this rig is an AX. Is that the AXI?
Yep, AX.
It's an AX 1200i from Corsair.
Yeah.
So here's another. Let's see if this is another out of the box 30 mega hash RX 580. Another fresh one. I got one more after this, and then we are good for the build, or the second build of the night. Let's see what we got.
All right, so these are just USB changer.
Okay,
oh, you're on that. Got it.
Yeah, I'll show you. I'll show you 1 second. We're looking at to see if I need to do a BIOS update on this card. I'm kind of holding the tripod up so we can get a better view on it. Get the monitor at an angle. Close that window. All right, let's go back to this. Having a little storm come through here, so I had to Yep, that's another 30 out of the box. So Micro Center sold us some very nice out of the box 580s. 30.8. Now what we can do too is we'll check the power on these.
Yeah.
After we're done. The ones that we did the modification on, you notice the power difference was significant because we didn't adjust the timing or the power settings, and it was using almost 150 watts less. So since I'm not doing the BIOS mod on this, if the power stays up at 1200 on these, then we're going to want to end up pulling them probably tomorrow and doing a BIOS update on them. You know what I mean? With the modded BIOS?
Yep.
To make sure that we're running consistent with the power. So this is the last card. Zoom out here. You can see what we're doing here. Oh, the last card to see if we need to do the BIOS mod on it. See if it's holding 30. That's kind of the target hash rate that we're trying to achieve on all these cards, is to ensure that they're stable at 30 mega hash a piece. That gets you around that 180 mega hash rig. $180 mega hash at, if we can hold 180 mega hash right at 1,000 watts, I'd be happy. Well, we can get better, but let's see what this does out of the box. Again, the version, the Claymore we're using on this is 9 or 8, not 9.2. I thought I downloaded 9.2. It's 8.0 on this.
That is 8.0.
Yeah. Okay. Yep, and this one's 30. So I'm thinking Wattman is still set, so I'm going to adjust that. And I'm going to make sure it drops it to 27, because that's what it should drop it to. Wattman. Still got the frequency at negative 10%. This is at 22. We're going to drop this back down to 2,000. We'll apply that. I'm going to close that. We're going to see if this drops this down to 27. If that does it, then the timings are fine. If it drops it to 24, then it needs a BIOS update. So, yeah, 27, it's fine. That's the same timing. So all that was changed, because I was zoomed in, you guys couldn't tell, because I changed we had Wattman set at 2200, which about 2150s really the stable settings that most people use on the memory settings, and we take a 10% drop in the actual card's core clock. So the core on these are actually 1380 or 1333, I think. And we take them down 130 watts from the core. So this thing's holding 27 out of the box, so it's got good timings on the BIOS. Again, we're gonna post this BIOS, the one that we locked in, it's at this rate before modification, which gets you almost 28 mega hash, for you guys on our description when we post this live stream. So be sure to check that out if you get these cards, and it should get you a solid 30 mega hash. And that's the last one there. So I'm going to shut this down. And while he's finishing that build, I'm going to go ahead and modify the Devil 13 card, or the Red Devils that we have. Just why I'm in it. So let me zoom out here. So I have these. Let me get some proper lighting over here so you can see these. So these are the Red Devil 480s. Not much to them. They don't really light up or anything. And they actually, I got these from trading in I had a blown fan on one of the Devil 13s. So they're not giving out the Devil 13s anymore, so they send these as replacements. They originally sent in 2. I pushed back on them saying, you know, that was $1,000 card. These are only $250 a piece. So I kind of forced them to give me 4 of these for one of the 290X2s. So it was kind of, from a financial standpoint, the same thing, because that card, that RX was a 392X card. It was $1,000 brand new. It was only about 5 months old, the last one that I had. So we got a 4-card rig out of it. So I'm going to take that and put that in there, and we're going to modify that one real quick, and you'll get to see the timings on that. And once we find a good setting for this one, I'm going to make sure that we post this Red Devil BIOS 2 out there for you guys. Lost a whole bunch of them. So those are all good. Take this one, put the Red Devil in. 2. PC.
You should probably, why don't you mention about the motherboard that you had found that replaced this ASRock one.
Which one?
The other one that went
the
on.
TB25?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there is a BioStar board out there. Some people have mentioned they'll take a look at. I've looked around to see if I can get one ordered up. We'll do a review on it when we get it. But it's the BioStar BTC board, or the BioStar BTC board. We'll do a proper review on that once we get that in. One board that does not work, that we were trying. I still got some testing to do with it. I'm going to change my graphics, or my lighting setting here for a second, and take you over to this build. So this is the strict build that we're working, and I got crafty and tried a new board out. which is the what is that? This 170 series Asus. Got 6 slots and a PCI one in the middle. It does not work. It does not have enough available, says resource and hierarchy settings for it. It only lets 3 cards enable. There's some testing I'm going to do with it, with turning off like the sound and all kinds of other stuff to see if I can get enough resources to actually get the 6 cards to work on it, but as of right now it doesn't work. So that being said, it's going to get pulled in order to probably put a BTC board in there. What we got here? This thing running. Let's see a post. Does not have a go check this, see if you guys have asked any questions. That's booting. We'll load the drivers on that. Oh yeah, the question on the motherboard. So that's the HED1 Pro BTC R2, right?
Yep.
So the board we're using on the new build box is this guy. Probably seen it in the last video. It's the H81 Pro BTC R2. We'll do a little zoom in here and let you get a look at it. And the real big distinct difference on it, so the only distinct difference is one of the PCIe are the Molex connectors is on the side
Over here.
so where the two we're at, it's actually kind of kicked sideways there, and you got to kind of put the Molex in on the side if you're going to use that. Now I've seen comments people don't use the Molex connectors if they're using powered risers. I have always used those. I will never not stop using them. We've done the power measurements on it. I know that it doesn't draw extra when you have the extra powered risers. The risers take a lot of the load, but short of the annoying screen that comes up asking you to plug it in, I've just not had any boards burn up when I don't use those, or when I use those. So I just go with what works. If you've had success where you've gotten away with not plugging that in, that's great. I will still choose to probably keep plugging it in. So Red Devil's plugged in. We're gonna first to the GPU-Z, take a look at what memory's on it. Samsung memory, got it. I'm really doing that because I have 2 of these and I just want to make sure they're both using the same memory. I forgot to go in again. Administrator. Habits. Open in ATI WinFlash again. We're going to save the BIOS on this. Here, I'm going to make a new folder. Call this Devil 13 RX 480. I think they're not actually Devil 13s. I think they're just Red Devils, but we'll go with it. And we'll just call this the Red Devil RX 488 GB. Come on, original. Save. So we're saving that BIOS off. I'm gonna zoom in. Just on that. And then, well, before we do that, we gotta benchmark the card. Get the. Let me push this up.
No, you're good.
We're gonna see what this card stock is doing. 24, look at that. Wonderful 24 base stock settings. 24.7. No other mods to it. It's pretty common. The RX 480 series when you first get it out of the box. Let's close that off. We're going to open up the Polaris editor. You guys have seen this a few times. Maybe some people are just joining and they'll get to see it the first time. Not having to go back to the live stream. We're going to open the original BIOS. And under the timing window down here, we're going to take the 1750, copy it, paste it into 22, or the 2000, paste both A17. I'm going to save this as the same name, minus we're going to change the original to modded. Make sure that it says dash modded, it does. We're going to save. We're going to close that. We're going to reopen up WinFlash. Say yes to that. We're going to load that image. And we're going to choose the modded. We're going to hit open. And we're going to hit the program button. Again, if this is the first time you're watching this because you joined late, this is the Red Devil. We're modifying the BIOS timings. If you get the BIOS saying, or the flash saying that it's not responding, don't worry about that. Just let it sit there and do its thing. Don't turn it off. That BIOS was updated. We're gonna hit OK. We're gonna let it restart. And we're going to go back in there and test the settings. Now that should bump it up to about 27. And then we'll bump the memory timings up. Oh, this is the fun one where we had the signature thing, probably. And change the timing so it throw off the card. So we're gonna have to do the patcher probably on this particular card. Because it's the 480. So the RX 580s, you're not having to do the patcher on it, where the device driver signing issue. This one's got a device driver signing issue with it. I'm going to do that in a separate video, because there's a few more steps to that. So what I'm doing for right now is I'm reprogramming it back to the original, because we're almost done with this other build, and I want to do a separate discussion on when you modify some of these BIOSes, it effectively changes enough of the signature from the device driver signing that you have to actually modify that for you to essentially trick the driver into knowing that you're still good. On the RX 580 series right now, from the ones that we've looked at, we haven't had to do any of that. I'll do a separate video, as this one's starting to run long, on doing that patcher setting. There are several YouTube videos out there right now that show you how to do this. So if you really need to see that right this second, you can go out there. We'll link a few in the description on doing that. I'm just showing you it obviously reloading the other setting there. It worked fine coming back. We will do a separate video on that one. Bring this over here. See how this one's going. Essentially doing the kind of setting up of the risers and the connections with related to their power sources from the SATA connections. You can see we're kind of wiring those up. I do recommend only doing 3 risers. Even if your thing supports 4, leave that 4th one open. We have some good experience showing that if you're pulling too much on that, you will actually melt. You have potential to melt your
PSU.
PSU. Is that your phone? You got a picture of that? We'll show them. I'm going to show you an image of what happens when you plug 4 risers, or what can happen if you have 4 risers plugged in to one of those SATA connectors. What happens, or what can happen. So I recommend only 3. So most of the cards are going to be 6-card setups. So those things that are there,
Flip it to the left or the right, and it shows the PSU.
you will see essentially it burned up. That's the connector that actually goes into the PSU. You can see some of the burnt damage there. And then the actual, of course it's going to play that flip game with me. You can see it right here, what ended up happening. Ended up frying it right there. And that was all just from 4 SATA connectors going in there. So kind of pro tip, you only want 3 at max.
It ran for 2 weeks before it actually did, before the PSU failed on us.
Yeah. Here, we'll bring this closer. They can see the... build setup. if anybody has any questions, I can answer some questions for you. Dummy plugs with the mining builds. Define dummy plug. No. I do not use any of the older plugs that you'd plug in to try to trick the system if you're trying to go with like a headless system.
However, I do set the motherboard, I turn the video card on the motherboard on so that you don't have to plug the HDMI into one of the actual video cards.
Yeah, Gary, I don't think, I've never really experienced that. There was in the early days, there was some cards with some motherboard combos that had some issues with stepping the card down if it didn't have a monitor plugged into it. And a lot of the later stuff, I haven't seen any instances of that. Yeah, you want to make sure your Windows mode set to performance and that you don't have anything shutting down or stepping your system down. But by and large, most of that's fine. I mean, most of the stuff we're doing has been mostly Linux. I mean, we do use Windows for some of the stuff. It's just, I've had so much instability with Windows. The consistency with Linux is just on another level. It seems like there's just an infinite amount of things in Windows that can turn off your mining rig and become unstable. There's system updates, there's Java updates, there's all these things that if you don't manage that it could possibly turn the rig off, it could throw an exception. You know, even doing simple browser stuff like through Chrome, since Chrome activates your GPU, you know, there's an infinite amount of things that can occur in a Windows environment because there's so many more variables. That's why a lot of those folks going with like ETH or other stripped down Linux builds with like the latest kernels are kind of the way to go, because you've taken out a lot of other variables that can take out the system. And now you're working purely just on hardware differences, and maybe if you're on the bleeding edge of the technology, you know, or pushing the technology, if you're trying to bring down the voltage a lot, you're messing with the core settings a lot. You know, why it works on one or two cards. You may have one card in the mix that's just unstable and it throws the whole system out of whack. What we try to do from a consistency standpoint is be at a median somewhere in there. Don't be at the extreme. So, i.e., if these cards support 2200 memory setting and it looks like they run real well, try it right out of the gate maybe for a little bit. But if it's unstable, just step it down to 2150. Because it ends up becoming a math problem to find out how often is the rig down versus it being up, and if you can hold a consistency in being up, it serves you a lot better than gaining a few extra mega hash or a few less cycles of power, because over time you're going to make that up just from the consistency of the rig staying up. Right now the 480 is probably the preferred. 580s are just not. I mean, we're literally just testing them now. They look pretty promising. I mean, we'll see with this rig here. You know, in Windows, it looks like they're all holding a little over 30 mega hash, which is nice. But some of the 480s were kind of being pains, and they only get 28 or 29, but not holding 30 consistently. It seems like these 580s are a little more robust and handle the higher clocks better. With a few tweaks to memory, you drop the power usage from 1200 watts down to a little over 1000, just with a few adjustments and settings. So we're going to do a long-term test with these after these are built. That's kind of the point of this build tonight, to kind of get a couple of them together and see how consistent they are. Not really. I mean, if you're going to build your own version of Linux, the question is it's hard to set up on Linux. What I would say is don't try to reinvent the wheel. There's a lot of already built OSs out there that are ready to go for mining. We've mentioned simplemining.net a few times. We'll put it in the description right now. That website that I just linked has a nice little tutorial walkthrough on the right hand side to walk you through which image to burn to a USB flash drive. Essentially once that's done, you put in your email address just in the text file that's on the USB drive after it's built, and then you configure everything on their website on simplemining.net. You can remote manage the rig using that, and it is a very stripped down version of Ubuntu with just all the dedicated stuff you're going to need for mining, and that's it. And a slightly modified, I think they did a slight modification to the kernel to turn off everything that's non-needed. But it seems to be super consistent. And it's free, unlike ETH not being free.
Okay.
What do you got going?
So I'm going to take my HDMI cable. I'm going to plug it into this card because I know that is the, well, it will be. It is the card that I'm going to be able to see the OS boot up off of. I'll leave the other one alone for the moment. And
we'll get it set up over here so they can kind of see.
Yeah. So I don't have it plugged into the internet right now. I just want to boot this up for the first time. And I have no OS either, so it's going to force me into the BIOS of the motherboard. So this is a great screen. One thing, when you get this, you just want to hit the letter N, and you'll never get that message again until you update your firmware on the motherboard. So what I always do with these ASRoCs, so I go to the advanced, I go to the chipset, and this primary graphics adapter, I change that from PCIe Express to onboard. And the moment that I do that, I no longer have to plug in the HDMI to the video card. I just plug it into the board. Then I go down to the onboard audio, This is just me, not required, but I disable it. Never going to use it, so I just disable it. And then the other thing I change in here is the power. Restore on AC power loss. Right now it's the default is, you know, power off. Change that to power on. That way if you have a power outage, power comes back on, it's automatically going to boot up for you. Hit F10, say yes. That's all good. And now I can turn that off. Pull the plug out of the card, put it onto the motherboard, store back my card settings, cables. All right. And now I'm going to plug the internet in. And plug my flash drive in, which has the OS on it.
Again, this is a modified version of Ubuntu that's available on simplemining.net.
So now when I power this on, everything goes well. It should start mining.
Again, this is using the onboard video from the motherboard for your display. That way, in this case, you didn't have to plug into a card or guess what card you need to plug into.
I have found if I try to run this headless, that it just freezes at the beginning. Like I have to have it plugged into a monitor. Monitor doesn't have to be on, but it has to be plugged into a monitor. Luckily I got KVM, so
Yeah, it just works.
it just works. Yeah.
But it's just the one. You need one connection to the monitor. You don't need
Yeah.
all plug in or dummy cables or anything like that. So again, this is, I believe, version, I should say once the mining starts, but these cards were hashing earlier in the video, as you saw, at 30 mega hash each with 2150 memory settings. With this version of Claymore that's on here in Linux, we should see about 27. We will try to modify the memory settings here in a second once it starts up. Let's see if we can get and hold. Yeah, it's asking for miner selection. Try Claymore 9.2. There should be a Claymore 9.2 in there. You see it?
I'm just gonna update the OC. Core clock was 1135.
Yeah.
Memory was 2150.
Yeah.
And then we'll leave the rest of the default. Save that. Showing the changes.
So we just push changes right now to it. So it's consuming the changes. This is Claymore. This is version 8.1. We can go in there and change that to 9. I think he has 9.2 on that simple mining. an option for that.
Yeah.
I mean, you can use the PC to probably do it just quick too. I'm gonna start mining here in a second. It's going to the DAG.
Interesting. I got 227s.
Well, the four, those are the fours we didn't do the BIOS update on.
Yeah.
So in Windows they're doing 30, but without the BIOS update, they're doing 24. That's what we thought it would happen. And so it's good to know. So even though the timing on it just shut down.
I didn't do anything.
Is it at 1200?
Yeah. Let's set this like this. Got a red light here.
It tripped the AS.
Yeah, it's tripping it right away. It's interesting.
Well, were you saying you had a problem with that 1200 before?
Yeah. Well, I thought I did. But
Yeah, it's not using any wattage.
nothing.
Might have a bad power supply. Just throwing it off.
Yeah.
But we know that we need to modify those.
Let's unplug these guys.
We don't know which ones because we didn't label them.
Oh, I do.
Huh?
I know.
You know which
ones.
four the...
Which one of those?
No, which four that need the BIOS update.
Oh, no. No, I don't know. Sorry. Let's see if that works. No. Alright. Well, that's always fun. Gotta take out the power supply, put another one in.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, that could be for this video. I mean, they sold a couple of builds. So we either have an issue with this power supply, which this was pulled from another build, because right when it started getting a load, it popped.
Yeah.
And now it's tripping. So we might have a bad AX 1200i here. Good thing is we have several other power supplies laying around. What we can do, and we can do this tomorrow. This video is already 2 hours. Is we can test this just to make sure that you're not tripping. Well, we could test it. I mean,
Yeah.
so
That thing's a bear to put in. Trying to put in, so Mike pulled out a EVGA 1600,
I don't know if that's
and
video showing.
it is absolutely
Zoom.
hard to put into that
Out.
case.
So we may put this bad boy in there just for testing purposes, of course. The 1600 T2, which is like a nuclear sub of a power supply. But we do need to modify the timings on all those, which I can do later. But this is the power cord. Look at that thing. How thick that is. It's a huge power cord for that 1600. It is a beast. For folks that haven't seen that, is the 1600. That thing is a monster.
Alright.
So I think we're gonna end it on that one. We know that we need to modify those 4 cards that were running at 30 mega hash fine in the Windows build, and we didn't touch the timings. In the Linux build they were back down to 24, so we're going to modify those timings tomorrow the same way that you can see in the earlier part of this video. If you tune in late, we're going to make sure that this is posted. You can go to the beginning part of the video. Please ignore the first like 7 to 10 minutes because we had our audio gain way high. I'll put in the description kind of where it starts good, and then you can see us modify those settings on these RX 580s. But we're going to do that to those other 4, and we'll get this rig burning hopefully close to 30 mega hash a piece. So I think we're going to end it there. I'm going to ask a couple questions if you guys want to, or I'll answer a few questions if a few of you guys have any. No, we did not trip a breaker. It actually was hashing fine for a second. That power supply that we were using was suspect. So we may have a bad power supply, but we'll test it. If you guys like this, yeah, just like, subscribe, drop some comments on this after video. If you have any other questions, we'll make sure they get answered. And if you guys like the live streams, I don't mind doing the live streams. It's a lot easier from the editing side, for sure. And it lets you guys see kind of some of the issues and stuff that you can run into, and then how to fix them. So, and it shows you also the inconsistencies sometimes when, you know, you guys all saw those cards in Windows and they're all running 30 mega hash, and then we get them into the Linux world and they're running 24. But again, the timings weren't modified, so we'll get those timings modified, and I think we'll be in good shape. And then we'll do another video maybe this week or this weekend, and I'll take you guys through the RX 480s, undoing those modifications with regards to the patch that you're going to have to use to modify the driver signature. And we'll go through that step by step and make sure you guys see it on a couple different sets of cards we have here. We got the Asus Strix that we're going to do it to. I have those back there are the RX 280 or 480. I think those are the XFX cards, and then I think that was it. I think I have a couple other MSI 280s or 480s, and then of course the Red Devils that we'll do. But we're gonna go ahead and end this video and then get these descriptions updated and get the BIOS posts for you guys can use those BIOSes out there that we know are 30 mega hash. So thanks for tuning in, guys.